Dun dun dun. Your wife found the red pill, and now she's mad. What do you do? Oh no, don't worry about it. Welcome. Mids Watch. Ryan. This one isn't like a much of a hardcore. At least it's not nearly as heavy as the last few I've recorded in these ones. It's mostly just about wives finding red pill material, and it happens often enough. It's actually kind of funny the way guys find it, but we'll get to that in the thing. We'll start off with the field report of the guy, my thoughts on it, prolific poster, Jack Ten of Hearts with his marketing pitch on it, and then at the end of it, we'll summarize it. The title plus this went better than expected. So I was at work. I have an old Kindle Fire. The wife thought it'd be a good idea to power it up and give it to her kid to download apps for her upcoming vacation. I never thought about it, and it was just collecting dust. Apparently the library's still linked. She booted it up and must have found No More Mr. Nice Guy, Married Man Sex Life Primer, When I Say No I Feel Guilty, The Way of the Superior Man, The Art of Zen and Motorcycle Maintenance. The last two obviously aren't bad, but the first four she got intrigued by. Thank God, Sex God Methods and The Rational Male are online and read in incognito. The wife gets herself and me a beer and asks me to join her on the patio. As soon as she mentions the old Kindle, I know what's up, and I'm preparing the I'm self-improving speech. The kicker is that she read parts of all of them during the day. So now she knows why I've dropped 30 pounds, taking back control of the finances, and been hitting the gym for the last couple months. She's not pissed. She knows what's up to a degree. She only asked for one answer. Why did you start this? What caused you to start upon this journey? That's her words. I held frame throughout this. She made it easy. And after dinner, we had a lengthy talk about our marriage, what I find wrong with it. The only sidebar material we really talked about is Married Man Sex Life Primer, and I don't say anything about the red pill or married red pill. She mentions that I've brought up things I'm unhappy about before, not enough blowjobs, sex is infrequent, no cuddling, no making out. But the last time we discussed this was before the red pill, and I then, for the first time, start to confront her in a very non-threatening way about the things she said to me over the past 2 years that caused me to start realizing this stuff is true, and eventually leading me down this whole road. Things like, my two greatest fears are losing everything I have, and that is all I'll ever have. I'm sad that I'll never experience a first kiss again, and a few other things. This is from the wife. She's totally forgotten ever saying those things and insists that they must have been in the context of something relevant. As you can imagine, that my shit is locked in my brain forever. I told her that I was trying to avoid bad marriage shit by taking it on the head before things got that bad. I had seen cracks in the armor and wasn't going to wait for anything to break. I told her I've learned a lot of things to make me a better man and that she'll be a beneficiary of that. She agrees, still taken by surprise. She thinks it's egotistical to think that by changing myself I can help her with her shit. I told her I can't, but I can help by being more of a man around the house and taking care of myself. So I tipped my cards and gave one example of my implementation about how I've been going. I told her that when I used to ask her for sex, she turned me down, but now that I just initiate, she doesn't turn me down and we have a lot more sex. And she admits sex has been good the last couple months. She then asked me if there's any books about this stuff written for women. I was taken aback and told her I didn't know. She said they're probably titled, Just Suck That Dick, You'll Get More of What You Want. She also added that she had a talk with a friend about her idea of a submissive wife coming up. The wife said it was a religious right movement and this is gaining traction. I told her I was aware of it, and it is similar. By the way, we are Christians, but not religious. We had sex later that night, and I instigated instead of asking. First thoughts on this one. Everybody is told, stop trying to red pill your wife. Don't tell your wife about red pill. And everybody thinks that means it's some secret cabal of woman-hating misogynists, and your wife will leave you if she ever finds out. And that's not the case at all. Nobody, doesn't matter. Like, obviously my girl knows this. I'm doing this for a living. I've written 2 books on it and about to write a 3rd. Like, she knows. The reason you don't mention it is because you turn it into a covert contract. She sees all the tips and tricks and you think, well, as long as that, now that she's on board, we can do this and it'll be a problem-free life. Just because she knows it's here, it doesn't change. It's like makeup. Just because you know it's there doesn't mean it doesn't work. Like, she'll start calling, oh, you just think this is a shit test, don't you? And she'll start using the lingo from the book to fuck with you. You don't need that, especially if you're just new and learning what's going on. And granted, he talked way too much about this. But there is something that I think is really important that a lot of guys miss out on, where, so she has some little lines, like really hurtful shit too, right? Like, oh, this is all I'm ever gonna have, and my biggest fear is that I'm gonna end up being old and alone, and this is all I'm ever gonna have. And her, it was just some flippant feeling she had a moment, it was gone. Didn't even remember saying it. Or, It sucks that I'll never get to have my eat, pray, love phase shit like that. And she didn't think about it again. Not realizing that this kind of stuff, guys remember this stuff. We'll remember it for a lifetime. And so girls don't really know. Like, forgive them, Lord, they know not what they do. So if I could give advice to girls, is that when you're emotional and you say some hurtful shit like that, try to be more empathic or empathetic, because you're probably going to do some things to crush a man's spirit, but they won't and they can't. But I mean, it took that kind of slap across the face to lose those wife goggles for him to become the guy he wants to be. And he did the smart thing when he always framed it as in what's best for her, because that's how girls think. They're solipsistic. What does this mean for me? And if he says, I'm trying to be a better plow horse for you, I'm trying to be a better man for you, it doesn't matter what he's doing. It's how she perceives it, and then she tends to be better off with it. So I mean, it wasn't handled the worst. He was also talking about like books for wives. So there actually is one. It's called The Surrendered Wife. Laura Doyle. I've never read it, but all the red-pilled women all suggested amongst each other. So if a girl ever asks, is there anything for me that can help me on this thing? Offer that book. And then if anybody has ever seen Blow Your Man, He'll Do More What You Want, I would put that in the comment section. I'd love to see that book. I think it'd be great. Hopefully it's a picture book, but yeah. But Jack 10. So he's like, when my kids were born, I went with a financial manager, reviewed things like retirement goals, life insurance, etc. The thing that stuck out with me is that anybody in good health needs to plan on living till like 100 years old. Which means in your 30s and 40s, in the throes of parenting, it's easy to forget that you're going to be looking at maybe 50 more years. And your kids are going to be adults, and then it's just you and your wife. And if the marriage is going to last that long, there needs to be more than just pleasant companionship, complementary parenting styles. Otherwise, it's too easy to have thoughts like, the greatest fears I have is that this is all I'll ever have. To rear their head in a woman's hamster wheel once the kids are old enough to be self-sufficient, and then begins her eat, pray, love phase. A few years ago, she even gave me my "Are you having a midlife crisis?" shit test. And I'm just like, she may think a good husband is somebody who financially supports the family, is responsible enough to nurture, educate, and discipline the kids, but is that how she's going to define a good husband in 10 years? What kind of man will she want to be married to then, when the situation where she doesn't have to be responsible for anybody else but herself? Kind of get where he's going with this one. If you guys haven't seen it, Rational Male's got a great female timeline. He's talking about the resurgence phase. And this is why most marriages, when they break up, the kids are about 5 to 6 year old, when a father goes from being essential to being nice to have. And that's just it here. So it's like, yeah, that's great. You love this great father stuff, but what happens when the kid turns 6? You still gonna find it that way? And that's why you can't take your cues from women. And as far as the egotistical stuff, he's like, you know what? The above thought exercise is how I've framed my various self-improvement efforts for my wife. It's the easiest way to explain the alpha bucks approach. The bucks becomes a lot less valued when the kids are adults themselves. Anything she'll still want in a husband afterwards will unquestionably be alpha. And there's actually a lot of material in this kind of stuff from liberal and progressive sources, bringing up the whole right-wing thing. Scott Alexander is pretty goddamn blue pill, although he has some pretty interesting thoughts on why angry young men are finding solace in the red pill. And he raises some interesting points in his attempts to play devil's advocate with reactionary philosophy. And then he brings up the story, and this is off topic, but I think it's kind of interesting. And he's talking about how women have been lied to and how a lot of the reactionary stuff is against it. So like, imagine two options. You're working from home, you're your own boss, your job description is spending as much or as little time as you want with your own children and helping them grow to adjust to the adult world. Or a job in the office where you have a boss and he wants you to get the report by yesterday, or she's going to throw your sorry ass on the street where it belongs, and there better not be any complaints. Now assume both jobs give you the exact same amount of social status and respect. And now assume a bunch of people come along and say, well, actually, only losers pick job one, and you're not a loser, are you? And then you have to watch all your former job one buddies go and take job two and be praised for this, and your husband asks why you're not going into job two and contributing to the family, and eventually just give in and go to job two, but you've also got to do portions of job one, and the extra income miraculously fails to give your family any more money. In fact, you're better worse off than before. Obviously, you can see here he's talking about being like a boss bitch versus a stay-at-home mom. And he's like, is it so hard to imagine a lot of women will be less happy under this new scenario? Of course not. Most feminists say it's okay, it's reasonably okay, but let's use feminist own criteria in this one. Suppose Disney puts out a bunch of movies where all the female role models only ever take that boss bitch role. and they're real women, and the villains are the stay-at-home mom types, you know. And then brief messages. Well, of course, working at home is totally okay too. Do you think feminists respond, yeah, we have no problem with this? After all, they really did flash that small message at the end. And he was bringing up, like, yeah, on this stuff, is it any wonder that women have no direction? You have two options they could take, but the one option is just hammered home constantly. Peer pressure, Disney fantasies, all that stuff. Women are lied to their entire life. So is it any wonder that all you'd have to do is just offer a little bit of status and they'd be taking the option one? Now, that's more of the traditional thing. But it's kind of interesting that you see a lot of people when they just realize that a lot of the boss bitch feminist stuff really is just corporate gaslighting. So, but what does that have to do with your wife finding your red pill stuff? Nothing really. The only thing really to take from it is just realize that women don't know what's best for them. That every influence on her doesn't know what's best for her. You didn't know what was best for you until you actually had to think about it. And now that you have a plan and a way ahead, feel free, bring her on for the ride as long as she's willing to act like the good wife. And like we quoted in Praxeology for the Dominant Man, the only thing that matters when she walks through that door is the role of wife, of mother, of lover, that kind of thing. So as long as you can keep that in the back of your head, doesn't really matter how it implements. She can have a job if she wants to. She can be a stay-at-home wife if you guys handle that. Everything's going to come with its own challenges and its own responsibilities, but throughout all of it, the only way it'll work in the long term is with the praxeology of a dominant man, aka you. And then just don't forget a lot of our SMV stuff. What she's attracted to at 23 isn't the same thing she's attracted to at 30, isn't the same thing she's attracted to at 40. And so just understand that you don't want to hyperfixate on just being the desirable alpha, because that works until she gets baby rabies and wants a kid. And then don't just be the good father Matt Walsh, because that's going to work until she's 37 and the kids have moved out of the house. You just got to kind of be flexible with this stuff and try to become as attractive as you can in as many different venues as you can. It's not my favorite lesson, but it's a good one. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.